everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to speak to a larger audience. Peter Dew's my name, public speaking trainer and coach. My passion is to help you confidently and effectively share your voice, share your message so you can make a difference to your communities, to your workplaces, to the people that matter to you. How do you speak to a larger group? And in 15 years of coaching people and training people in public speaking, one of the things that people really worry about is the big crowd. This is the 100, 500, 1,000 people who, when you get before, get absolutely petrified. I myself do conference speaking occasionally. And when I get invited to speak, and I know there's 250 people at the Crown Casino in Perth, and you're in the wings waiting to be introduced, and you're introduced and your heart rate increases, and you walk on stage and there's a sea of faces, it is really scary stuff. So today I want to give you some tips to help you be more effective, more confident, just more at home on the big stage rather than just the small workshop or around the boardroom table or presenting to your team. This is how do you speak to large audiences, the really big gigs. So welcome everyone, and apologies for postponing this webinar from yesterday. It is being recorded and will be made available to all of you who are unable to attend. As always, ask questions, take notes, participate, give me feedback, send me feedback after the webinar, send me an email, and think, are you holding back from a bigger stage because of fear, because of not knowing how to transition from 10, 15 people in a room to 100, 500 in an auditorium? So the first thing that's really important in my view and in my own journey as a person who stutters, in my own journey as someone who speaks to larger audiences, is we need to shift our mindset. The funny thing is, when you're in front of 500 people, each and every one of those 500 people is an individual. And they've each gone to this seminar or this conference for their own individual reasons. And when they're sitting there, although they're 1 in 500, they want to feel special and they want to take something away. And they really love it when the speaker who gets on the stage speaks to them as an individual rather than just that group talk where they speak above your heads and they just speak as if there's a big crowd. So the mindset shift is that speaking to 500 people is just 500 one-on-one conversations. Now, when I speak to people, helping them overcome their fear, when I coach people helping them overcome their fear of public speaking, I ask them, how do you go one-to-one? And they say, I'm fine one-to-one. So if your boss comes into your room and says, oh, could you give me a quick update? Yeah, I'm fine. But when there's 10 people in the room and I've got to stand up and do an update, I fall to bits. So I ask them, what's changed? Or there's more people looking at me. But the reality is each and every one of those 10 people in the boardroom just wants to have that one-on-one conversation with you. So speaking one-to-one is exactly the same as speaking 1 to 10, is exactly the same as speaking 1 to 500. The only thing that changes is in your mind, you're saying, oh, gosh, I've got a lot more eyes looking on me. I need to do something different. No, you don't. You'll have spotlights on you so they can see you. You'll have a microphone so your voice is amplified. You don't have to shout or do anything different. Some of the bigger rooms will have you projected up on a screen. So even the people way, way down the back, this is the 3,000-4,000 venues, they'll be able to see you. So you don't have to do anything. It's still one-on-one conversations with all 500 people in the room. And in fact, the way I do it is I pick out one individual. I'll start down the back left and I'll talk to them for about 5 to 7 seconds. One person, I'll look them in their eyes and I'll have a deep conversation with them as I'm presenting. Then I'll move down the front to the right and I'll pick someone there and I'll speak to them for 5 to 6 seconds, a real one-on-one conversation. Then I might move across in the middle down the left, speak to that person for 5 or 6 seconds, then bang in the middle back, and I'll just randomly pick spots in the room and speak to one individual. The funny thing is the 10 people sitting around that person feel like I'm speaking to them. So it's not a case of worrying about, okay, I've looked at 485 people. Where's the 15 people I've missed? If you've used your eye contact evenly throughout the room, the whole room will feel like you've had a one-on-one conversation with them. You've taken time to speak to them. So this is a mindset shift. One-to-one conversations, and 90% of people I work with say, yep, I'm good with that, is exactly the same as one person to 10 people. And you're going to speak to those 10 people with eye contact. You're going to have a conversation with them. You're going to move your eyes around. Is exactly the same as 500 people. I'm going to speak to an individual in that 500. Pick someone out, talk to them, make eye contact. They know I'm talking to them. So when they leave at the end of my seminar, they feel like, wow, Peter was just having a chat to me. So that's the mindset shift. That's an overarching principle of speaking to a large audience. Just be yourself as you would one-to-one. Everything else will be taken care of in terms of the lighting, the amplification of your voice, the speaker system. The data projector will be on a bigger screen. That's not for you to worry about. You just have to have one-on-one conversations with all 500 people in the room. All right, a few other things to help you. When you agree to speak to a bigger audience, please take a comprehensive brief. What's the purpose of this conference? What does success look like after you've spoken? What does the organizer, the person booking you, what do they want people to do? What do they want people to think? What do they want people to feel when you finish speaking? Be clear on the success factors. So take a brief as much as possible. Who's spoken to this conference previously? Who were the keynote speakers last year's conference, if it's an annual conference? The more you know about the conference and the reason why, the easier you're able to prepare and the more confident you will feel and the less likely you are to miss the mark. So always take a comprehensive brief. When is the conference? How many people's going to be there? What is the venue? How long do you want me to speak for? Are we doing questions and answers? Is there going to be a panel session and I'm going to be part of the panel at the end? Is it going to be recorded? Ask as many questions as possible when you agree. Especially now with hybrid meetings. So you may have 200-300 people in the room and you may have another 200 or 300 people zooming in or coming in via Teams or WebEx. And so your role is now not only to attend to the people in the room, but the people in the virtual room. And that can be really, really tough as a conference speaker. Me personally, I'd rather have everyone in the room or everyone on Zoom. The hybrid with half in the room and half on Zoom is really hard to get good results for both groups. So take a comprehensive brief. What's expected of you? What does a successful outcome look like? Do your preparation. So make sure you know your topic really well. Make sure you have the latest research. You have some historical background behind it. So know your topic really well. I use a saying, know your topic so you can plug and play. So plug and play means that regardless of what happens, you can deliver your keynote. And this means something like this. Maybe you're asked to speak for 45 minutes. 45 minutes, 45-minute keynote. You're asked 3 months in advance. You're prepared. You've got everything organized. And something goes wrong. The speaker before you speaks 15 minutes into your time. The special guest, the premier was invited, the prime minister was invited to open the conference and goes on a bit of a rant for 15 minutes longer. And all of a sudden, people are asking you, the conference organizer says, Peter, can you cut from 45 minutes down to 30 minutes? Can you do that? Because they're relying on you to bring the conference back on track. They're about to go to lunch and they need you to finish on time, even though you agreed to do 45 minutes and you now only have 30 minutes. This is knowing your topic so well that you can condense it and still have the same message. And sometimes the reverse happens. A speaker before you does not turn up. And the organizer might ask you to stretch. So can you go from 45 minutes to 60 minutes? And I'll get the speaker after you to also stretch from 45 minutes to 60 minutes, and that'll make up for the absent speaker. If you have a Q&A, anticipate those tricky questions. What question do you not want to be asked? What question, if I ask you, will make you feel really uncomfortable? And I think this high level of preparation helps control the nerves just that little bit, because you've got all your bases covered. If something goes wrong, it's okay. I can still go on. I know my topic so well that I can plug and play. Take me anywhere, anytime, and I'll be able to deliver my core message. Another thing with big conferences that I like to do, and this is me, maybe I'm over cautious, maybe I'm over attentive, but arrive early. I like to arrive really early. I want to familiarize myself with the room. I'll even go to the room if it's in the city where I live. If it's in Perth, I'll even go to the room the day before, just to get the lay of the land if I've never been to that venue before. If I'm speaking over east in Melbourne or Sydney, I will, as a West Australian, I will need to fly over the day before the conference. So that evening, let's say I arrive in the afternoon, and I'll generally stay at the hotel where the conference is. That evening, I will get permission to just stick my head into the room. And sometimes they're setting up, and it just gives you that sense of knowing the room. On the day of the presentation, I work out how early I can get in there. It might be 6 a.m. There'll be staff setting up, and I'll just walk on stage. I'll walk on stage and I'll visualize the audience. I'll walk on stage and see how much depth I've got. How far back can I go? How far forward can I go? And then once I've done all that and I feel I've ticked all my boxes and I really am familiar with this space, sometimes they give you funny clickers, not the normal Logitech clicker that I use, some complicated clicker. So once I've got all of that organized, I've ticked all my boxes, I've now got time to relax. And that relaxation may be deep breathing, it may be meditation, it may be just finding a quiet place where I'll sip some water. And I like to arrive early even if I'm not the first speaker. I'll arrive early, and that allows me to hear the other speakers. And sometimes what they say may amplify what I'm going to say, and I can refer to it. And sometimes what they say, I can add on what someone else has said. And that just enables me not to say exactly what someone else has said and regurgitate the same content, because I've noticed, they're using that model as well. So I can leave that out of mine. I can just briefly refer to it. So arrive early. I like to own my space, own the room, look at the depth. Where do I need to look at the crowd? Another reason to arrive early is meet the audio-visual team, the audio-visual technician. Make them your best friend. Remember, I said I think that I sometimes go a little bit too far. I maybe overcompensate. I ring up the conference organizer and ask, who is your audio-visual who's the audio-visual company that's running this conference with you? And it might be Perth Audio-Visual, it may be Staging Connections. Find out who it is. I'll then ring them and say, hey, I'm speaking in next week's conference on Monday morning. Which technician will be attending that conference? And a big conference of 500 people, they might have a team set up, but there's normally one person that stays the whole day. And I'll find out what that person's name is, and I'll ask a question. What sort of coffee do they like? Flat white, a cappuccino, soy latte? I'll find out what they want, and I'll arrive at 6 a.m. with a coffee, and they'll be in there setting up, and I'll meet them, and I'll say hello. I'll introduce myself. And I'll let them know if I've got any issues in my presentation. I show a video that sometimes they have trouble getting the audio working. If you make the technician, the audio-visual technician, your best friend, they will do whatever they can to make your presentation a success. They will look after you. They'll adjust the sound. They'll work overtime to try and get that video clip working. If you abuse them, they'll abandon you. So make your audio-visual person your best friend. They can look after you. They can troubleshoot for you. They can help you with any last-minute changes in PowerPoint if you decide just before that you would like to change your PowerPoint slides. I mentioned this in my mindset change. Use a conversational style. I'm not, even though there's 500 people in the room, I'm not going to change the way I speak. I'm still going to have those one-on-one conversations. And people in the audience don't want to be lectured. They don't want to be told how to suck eggs. They don't want to be spoken to. They want to have a conversation. They want to feel like it's a conversation. So even though it's a larger crowd, still adopt that genuine, authentic, the real you, the real Peter, having a conversation with the people in the room, one person at a time. The conference organizer will take care of your microphone, the lighting, the stage, the seating. You just have a conversation with the 500 people in the room. Part of your preparation is know your audience, and remember taking a brief. What does the conference organizer want? But sometimes what the conference organizer wants and what their success factors are not necessarily what the audience wants. So can you find a sample audience? Can you do a pre-seminar questionnaire? Can you ask for the names of 4 or 5 key stakeholders that will be attending that seminar? What would you really like to learn around my topic of how to overcome your fear of public speaking? What's the biggest barriers in your organizations around public speaking? Now, remember those difficult questions? Who's going to be in the room? Are you speaking to a group of lawyers? You're speaking to a group of accountants. The stories, the data, the information I use for accountants will be, and lawyers will probably be more data driven. Speaking to a group of nurses, speaking to a group of social workers, health professionals. Probably less data, more human stories to illustrate the points. So this is about knowing your audience. Who's going to be in the room? What do they want from you? Are there any cultural nuances you need to be aware of? Is the MC going to acknowledge the traditional landowners? I've been to several seminars where I'm the third speaker. Now, this is a while back, I will admit, and no one has mentioned the traditional landowners as yet. And so I take it upon myself to acknowledge that it's a pleasure to be here standing on Whadjuk land of the Noongar Nation. And this is about knowing your audience. And you'll be surprised at the number of people who identify as being Aboriginal or Indigenous Australian. And they come up to you after and say, "Oh, Peter, thank you so much for acknowledging the traditional landowners." Know your audience. Are there any topics that are a little bit prickly with this audience? Things that maybe you need to steer away with. Maybe you need to tone down your position. Or maybe deliberately you need to create a little bit of conflict. You need to be the antagonist to stir things up and get some action happening within that particular audience. Knowing your audience should help you prepare your message, tailor it for that audience, and you'll be more comfortable, a little bit more relaxed within yourself because you know who you're speaking to. The conference organizer will give you one lot of information, and this is your brief, but don't assume that they speak for all the expectations of the participants and the audience that are attending that conference. Use the platform. One of the mistakes I would say when speaking to larger groups is staying behind a lectern with a microphone that's anchored in the lectern, and you deliver your whole 45-minute keynote standing in one spot. With Zoom, I don't have a lot of choice, but to stand in one spot, otherwise I go off the camera. And one of the things I'll request is a headset, not one like this, more of a sort of Madonna, just that very minimalistic headset that people don't see, or even a lapel microphone. And the power pack sits in my pocket. Nobody sees any cords, and I can use the stage for purpose. I can move towards the front of the stage to emphasize a particular point. Remember I said I like to arrive early to know my venue, depth of stage. I also like to move to a particular site, and I'll reorientate and I'll speak to one part of the audience. I'll move to another part of the stage, then I'll reorientate and I'll talk to another section of the audience. But once again, picking out the individual. If I want to lessen what I'm saying, if I want to lessen the impact, or I just want to dilute something, or if I want to urge caution, look, I just want to urge caution here. I will move towards the back of the stage just to soften and dilute the impact. So I think one of the mistakes is when people stay anchored behind the lectern, and if they leave their PowerPoint up the whole time, they're in fact doing death by PowerPoint. So use the stage, come out from behind the lectern. They're my tips for speaking to a larger audience. The first overall arching principle is change your mindset. Speaking to 500 people is exactly the same as speaking one-to-one. You're giving the same information. You're giving your same experience, your same level of passion, same eye contact, but you're shifting it every now and then to a different person in the 500. Don't worry about shouting. The microphone will take care of your voice. Don't worry about lighting, or if you're a small stick figure on stage, they'll data project you up on the stage. So that's the first thing, change your mindset. The other notes, take a comprehensive briefing, do your preparation, make sure you can plug and play, arrive early, own the space, get comfortable on the stage, make the AV technician, the audiovisual person, your best friend. Keep that conversation going. Know your audience, try and avoid foot in mouth, try and avoid the cultural faux pas. All of this you can do by knowing your audience. And please do come out from behind the lectern and have those one-on-one conversations with all 500 people in the room. Upcoming webinars, how to be more influential with your audience. I've got 5 tips I want to share with you, because if you're not influential, you're just hot air. And generally we stand up and speak for a purpose, and that purpose is to create a change, to give new knowledge, to get people thinking about something, to create an emotional response. This is influence. If you don't create any response, you're not influential, and you are metaphorically speaking hot air. And I've been doing a bit of work in facilitation and group dynamics. So I thought I'd just touch on, from a speaker or facilitator's perspective, understanding the four stages of group development when running a workshops, and your role and how your role changes as that group goes. As you run a workshop, how your role as the facilitator, the trainer, or the presenter will change during the cycle of that group development. 11th of October, 26th of October. So Peter G's my name. You know how to reach me. I welcome your feedback. For those of you who are reviewing this, please ask any questions. So remember, speaking to a large audience, 500, 1,000 people, is in reality the same as speaking one-on-one, because each of those 500 people is an individual, and they want to walk out there. They want to walk out of the room after hearing you speak, feeling like you care about them, feeling like your message was directed to them, of value to them, of some benefit to them. Just have one-on-one conversations 500 times. This is Peter G, public speaking trainer and coach, wishing you well in your public speaking journey.